Welcome to the Flat Track Factory. In today's episode, we have the second segment with Craig Pavlich, a vehicle dynamics engineer and hobby flat track racer and friend, when he sits down and talks about some really cool things from an engineering and passionate flat track racer standpoint. Traction control, body position, what bikes to ride, strategies to learn these drills that we talk about. I think you're really going to like it. Check it out.
So we're back on the Flat Track Factory with my buddy, master engineer Craig Pavlich, and our adult beverages for the evening. Trying something different.
It's Friday night.
Friday night, a bit of a podcast format. I'm here in the living quarters of the factory with beverages in the background, and Craig's got his wonderful motorcycle there. I don't know if his wife
finally moved into the living room up here in snowy Chicago. So there we go.
Yeah. And it's going to snow. It's snowing here in Charlotte, so we're matching. Craig,
Yeah.
You and I have had the most hilarious arguments since I've known you for 15 years about why trash control is the devil, and it's never going to do better than me. And it's a great back and forth. Explain, as an engineer and someone who has worked in data acquisition and all this sort of stuff.
Vehicle dynamics and automated control.
Yeah. And hold up your book that
yeah.
you have there.
Well, we have a lot of, I have a lot of books, so don't ask me to hold them all up.
I think he gave me this one and I never gave it back, so we had to buy a new one, I'm guessing.
No, this is, if you are of an engineering persuasion and you want to learn about motorcycle vehicle dynamics, this is a academic book principally for engineers because it's very mathy, but it's got pretty good models of how a motorcycle works. And
it's
certainly behind it.
Italian, so, oh my God, what it's
and certainly behind it is probably the best research that's been published on how a motorcycle actually handles. And so there's some tricky topics that leads into this conversation a little bit, right? So one aspect of motorcycling that's very challenging is in the automotive world, there's a lot of published research. So there's government agencies. I used to work for one at Argonne National Lab. There's scholarly effort, universities all over the country publishing work about understanding better how automobiles work. But there's very limited academic literature about how motorcycles work. And so typically when research is conducted on motorcycle handling, on motorcycle dynamics, on engine development, it's mostly all done by manufacturers and then kept secret at the manufacturers. So there's not a lot available for us as interested people not working in a manufacturer to get. And so that book is one of the areas that's really great. And then that leads into the traction control discussion as well, because some of these things are relatively closely guarded secrets by the developers of this work, and certainly not published.
Let me tell people a story. It's not a direct one-to-one relationship, but I think it'll illustrate a point. The old lady and I went out to San Jose, and my buddy had a brand new Z06 Corvette, and it would turn traction control back on every time you turned the key on. So he gave it to us, and we were taking a weekend trip or whatever. And of course, I had to bring it back bald tires because my buddy expected that. I didn't want to do that, but
he lent you a car. He should have known that it could come back with bald tires or broken in half.
Yeah, exactly.
That's I want to reiterate Mike's favorite statement is don't lend me a bike unless you're okay with getting it back broken in half.
It's strange I have to explain that, but I
you should make sure that that's explicit, but he has done so.
Yeah. Okay, so we're goofing off. We come off the PCH and pull into a little turnaround, and I want to do a donut or whatever for fun. And the trash control is on, and you try to kind of get into a bit of the Scandinavian flick, to get it to flick around, and the trash control hits in like, oh, and just kills everything. I'm like,
sure.
No, that is not trash control. That is destruction. And it's just so ham-fisted. It's just, it just needs a little touch. I can do that with this, or in the Corvette, I can do that with this. but traction control, as it's normally applied, is so ham-fisted. It's shit. Explain to me why I'm wrong.
Okay. Now, wait a minute. So, where should I start? Should I start with defending traction control or defending your position? So
I don't know. I tried to trigger you for fun, see what happened.
Well, so I think in defense of your position that it's bad, what industrially in terms of automation and all the things that we do, I think that we've come a long way in terms of the understanding of how traction control works in terms of the dynamics. And I'm not making any excuses for crap versions of that feature that came before today. But that said, there's not a lot in motorcycles that we can do to also account for the body whip, right? And so this is where it becomes tricky. And so when we start talking about riding the bigger bike, we already talked about the 100s and stepping up to the bigger bike, where the power of the engine is now able to overwhelm the available traction of the dirt. All of a sudden,
it's really easy to do on a motorcycle, because as you corner, you roll off the tire, you reduce the contact patch, and then you add gas.
So I mean, it's a combination of linear load, lateral load, and then the acceleration that you're trying to apply. And then we'll add on top of that, if we wanted to go back to the book, weight transfer. So you're going to try to take weight off the front wheel and put it on the rear wheel and all of that. But it doesn't matter, because even if the tire to dirt adhesion is at a certain level, the dirt to dirt adhesion has a limit. So the layer of dirt that your tire is touching and the layer of dirt underneath it are only going to stick together so well.
That's the
and
roost.
once you overwhelm that friction, then all bets are off. You're spinning the tire, right? So this is why it's tricky, because now weight distribution on that tire becomes a huge portion of the equation, a much greater proportion of the equation than in any other motorsport. And I want to be clear about that. So in cars, where a driver puts his body is a very small percentage of the weight of the car. But on a motorcycle like mine, I'm 40% of the weight. This bike weighs about 210 pounds. So, I have a huge influence on what's going to happen at that rear contact patch, depending on where I put my body. And now after riding this bike, I'm starting to learn that. And one of the ways that I did that is, please post more videos of your riding style, Mike, so that when I get on the bike, I can be like, Mike puts his head here. I'm going to just do what he does. I don't know why that's good, but I'm going to try it and see if it works.
But don't in a very strange way?
Well, I yes and no. I mean, I actually understand some of the moves that you make as I progress through my ability to ride the bike. So, one of the things that I've recently learned, if you watch Mike on the Rotax, is he'll put his body inside of the bike on corner exit, and he'll lean in. But what he's really doing is standing the bike up higher while keeping the center of gravity in the same position. And to drift, he's counter steering the bike, so it's driving crossed up like that. But he's using the thrust of the bike now, which is crossed up, to help complete the corner. So it's a really interesting maneuver.
Off of the extremely delicate side of the tire and get it to stand up and get up onto the fatter part of the tire to stop abusing the skinny, delicate side.
Right, but you're also removing some of the lateral load. So if the bike's like this, it's got lateral load. Mm-hmm. If the bike's like this, it has hopefully less. And we're talking degrees. I'm not like going to do all the math sim to figure out exactly what the delta is there, but there's less. And so he's able to accelerate harder off the corner if he puts his head in, cranks the bike in counter steer, and then stands the bike up. And so those are tricky.
Remember, particularly for road racers coming to our sport, is if you do that on the way into the corner, you will wrap your head on the ground and explode your collarbone.
So that is a challenge. So, I still am not sure from a physicist engineering standpoint that road racing style wouldn't necessarily be better on a flat track bike. Now, wait a minute. Now, that said, the actual cornering style that I observe, and again, this is just a complete theory, is what it does is it accomplishes a similar mission with much less corner risk. So the reason that flat trackers adopt the flat track style is that they've actually mitigated the risk of losing traction on the front tire by doing the slide and the drift, but more importantly by the body position, right? So in the body position where you're on top of the bike, so you've got the seat under your butt crack and your foot down. If you're tucking either wheel, you're in a full tripod now. You've got leverage on your inner leg to push on the foot peg. You've got your tripod on your hot shoe to pop the bike back up. You've got all of this extra control so that when you do lose traction, you have a way to recover it. If you're in road racing style, potentially you're maximizing the traction, but you have none of those options available to you when you lose it. So when you do lose it, you'll be off the bike.
So I've always described that as being overcommitted, but I think you just said it better in 10 seconds than I've been able to do in 20, 30 years.
Right. So yeah, that said, my knowledge of that fact has made me no more successful at executing the maneuver. So to be fair, like knowing the correct reason that you would do that doesn't make it any easier to do it well. So potentially theoretically, a guy riding road race style like Marc Marquez head in fully committed to the corner, if they were able to deliver the traction that's needed through the whole corner, would have a higher momentum and a faster corner than you will in a flat track style, but you wouldn't probably be able, given the inconsistency of the dirt and all of the variables, to do that for 10 laps without having at least one incident where you tuck the front and you slide off the track. And so this is the reason that the flat track style has evolved into what it is. And inside of that then are a lot of micro strategies that are related to the overall traction of the track, right? So, even in road racing, we've got am I going to do my corner like this, or am I going to do my corner in the round style, right? And every track is a little bit different, and the conditions of that track also alter which way. Are you going to do a stop and go corner, or are you going to do a momentum corner? And even lap to lap, if you're making a pass, you might do a stop and go corner on a momentum track, right? So there's all of those tricks that you have to master to be good at this.
If somebody's way with a stop and go, diamond lap approach, diamonding the corner versus a momentum corner. If you can get in somebody's way, even if it's slower, you can make the move on position.
That's right. You park your bike in their way, they got to go the long way around. And
or wait for you to get out of the way.
Right. And so all of those challenges, and so as a hobbyist, it's difficult to master the whole toolbox, right? Because you go out to the track and you're running pretty good laps doing one thing, but in the limited track time we have, trying to master all the strategies on that track is a huge learning curve to try to get yourself to.
1 or 2 times a year, I do a race clinic where I try to cover, the biggies, what I consider the high reward for the limited time that we have in a day. And that is one of them is, talking about, okay, so, let's just look at 3 potential lines, the pole putt, the swooping line or the cushion line, and, the diamond or whatever, and just look at those. And I think I've discovered for students, that is the biggest aha moment, after I've been talking all day long, and then I finally suit up and I do it to them. I actually, go out there and they're doing what they think is their best lap, and I just pick one of the other 2 that they're not doing and do it to them. I do them.
Yep. That's impressive.
Well, yeah, but it's so, and it has nothing to do with me. It's just I've been doing this longer than them. To illustrate to them, there is lap time, there is corner speed in that particular corner, and there's position. And those 3 things, you've got to, those are your 3 cards, right? It's like I can't beat the guy on lap time, and I can't beat it on position, so I'm going to beat him on corner speed, or the other way around. But
and so there's a, that's a real, and this is where where I'm at a deficit coming in as a hobbyist later in life, right? So you're going to have to establish those moves in practice. You have to have confidence that you're going to be able to execute that maneuver, and you'll not probably want to experiment in the middle of a race. So you need to practice those maneuvers in practice, and then racecraft is being able to figure out in the middle of a race which move is appropriate for this situation. And that is a huge challenge, right? So figuring out both having all the moves in my pocket and then executing them at the right time is a real trick. And again, when you get beat by somebody like Mike, it's really impressive to see it happen. So just about the time.
That's very flattering.
Just about the time that you think you're good, and it doesn't matter, it doesn't have to be flat track, wherever you are, just about the time that you think you're good, when you've gotten into your 4th or 5th track day, or you're out here at, you started winning in whatever little class you've been running, then you can step up to a class and somebody will rip past you like you're not even moving and disappear into the distance, and make sure that you're humble. And potentially that's one of the other things that I love about racing, is that, wow, does it ever just bring me down a peg sometimes?
Yeah, it's happened to me too. I had the extreme honor of being on the track with a racer named Ricky Graham, who is no longer with us. And he set a kind of a record-winning season of, I don't know, what, 13 wins in a season. And he came by me one time. I thought his throttle was stuck, and he just held it wide open. And I came back in the pits, and I told my mechanic, let's load this shit up, because if that's what it takes, I'm never going to be.
Going back to 100 racing, so when I would race 100s in North Carolina, Mike would race that class, and he would enter the corner with so much later and with so much more velocity than me. It was shocking. Like, I would be starting to turn and he would not have let off the throttle yet. I don't believe you let off the throttle at all through that entire turn. It's not clear to me.
Actually, that track that you're talking about, there was 2 techniques. All in that era, all of the pros raced that class as well. And there was 2 techniques. So one was wide open with a slight brake drag that some guys did, and then I did a slight breathe. It
was amazing.
But it's basically,
and I mean, so just again, I just want to get back to the point of the 100 is an awesome learning tool, because just when you think you've reached the limit of what you could accomplish on a 100cc 12 horsepower motorcycle, let Mike pass you and see how much more you have left to learn.
Well, and this is why I preach this. And something really interesting happened recently. One of the guys that kind of helps me out with marketing and stuff, I was working with him on some logos or whatever, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I've thought about getting involved in that, and I know I should get a 100, but I really just want a 450. Those just look so badass." I'm like, yes, that is true, but until you can take a shitty motorcycle and make it go real fast, you can't take an amazing motorcycle and be successful. You have to make something shitty haul ass before you're really safe on something incredible.
Well, we're going to have to scratch all of that language from the video, but yes.
It's not my fault.
Whisky. Yeah. So, when we get back, we're back on the topic of the bike to choose. I don't want to discourage anybody. Just get the bike that you like, if that's what you want to do. But let's be cognizant of the trade-offs of that, right? So, riding a smaller bike in a less hectic class is going to give you a set of tools that you'll need that you won't get riding a very high powered bike, right? So in managing momentum and getting a feel for managing momentum on dirt, because dirt is, let me say, significantly more inevitable than a road race course. And when I say inevitable, the ideal lap in any racing format is a series of things that happen that make the next option that you have an inevitability. So if you run the perfect lap, it starts from the corner 3 corners ago, and you're at the limit all the way around. And on the dirt, that limit is much lower. So you don't have options to change your mind in the middle. You'll start the slide and you'll drift right to the edge of the track. And there's very little, if you've reached that limit, that you can do to correct that. And so you need to start being comfortable with walking that line and managing the limit and making sure you're not getting in over your head, and doing that in 12 horsepower while carrying momentum through the corner is a really good way to learn relatively safely. And then you can move on to getting into managing the traction of the bike, trying to get the bike stood up off the corner, putting your body in all of those fun positions that Mike makes look so stylish, and figuring out how to get the bike to hook up and go. But if you start there, you can get yourself into trouble really fast, because you can go over that line, get out on the dirt, start riding all over the place. I think in one of Dale's videos, he talks about just riding all over the place. And it's because, you've tried to skip a step, and you're going to need those tools. So you can start on a 450. You'll be able to ride it. If you're smart and you don't ride over your head, you'll be fine. But don't think that you're going to gain time by doing that, because you'll still have to put in the exact amount of time it would have taken you to walk up the 100 class to manage momentum before you master body position and traction.
I would argue that it takes more time, and this is why. Because the 450 will give you the opportunity to charge the corner so much faster that you will spend all of the time that you should be spending working on the edge work, the side of the tire, maximum lean, trying to keep from dying. Where if you are on a 100, you cannot charge the corner that hard, so you can concentrate on what really wins races, which is the boring part, which is lean angle and corner speed.
Momentum. Momentum.
Momentum. You mentioned this before. You really, to win a flat track race, to win any racing, really, your lowest speed needs to be faster than the other guy's lowest speed.
So Colin Edwards does a dirt school too that I wish I could afford to attend, where you also get to go hang out with Colin Edwards and shoot guns. And he exactly says this. He says it's all about carrying momentum through the corner, right? And so he does little tiny dirt bike classes. That's what he teaches on. And he's raced at the MotoGP level. And at any level, the more momentum you carry, then the less acceleration you need to put down through the tire to make a good lap time, right? So if we just keep the speed high, we don't need to slow down, so that saves time, and we don't need to speed up, so that saves time. And at the end of the day, the race is the least amount of time.
It's unromantic to talk about the highest, lowest speed. Everybody wants to talk about, opening the gas wide open. And I stand there and watch the amateur classes and watch these guys on 450s. Modern 450s make a lot of power, and I can hear they're wide open for 1.5 seconds per lap.
So I want to back this off of the competition conversation, because let's be clear though, at the end of the day, flat tracking is about having fun. And I'm oft quoted when I ride this bike of saying it's probably not the fastest bike around the track, but it is a lot of fun. And just like freestyle skiing or any of those things, there doesn't have to be a goal. If your goal is to look cool, drifting the shit out of the bike, have fun, do it. Sometimes that's more fun than winning the race. So, being able to drift a 450 is an admirable goal, even if you're not beating Mike Dillon. It's still cool to do, and I encourage everyone to go that direction. But yeah, it's certainly going to be you're still going to need the tool of momentum if you want to win. It's just, there's no way around that.
So what is the action? You and I have talked about this 100 times. what are some of the actionable strategies to increase your lean angle and mid corner speed, which are ostensibly the same thing?
Well, I mean, you're the teacher, so you know what Mike's. So this is a constant struggle for me. So when you're a new flat tracker, you're gonna back and forth. You're gonna seesaw between basically two issues. One is your ability to get into the corner at the speed, carrying the speed that you want, and then the other one is going to be getting out of that corner after you manage to carry that much speed in. And the dynamics of how you'll manage that corner will change over time. So if your entry speed increases, you'll have to learn to then choose a new way to get that bike to hook up and accelerate from that new, deeper, hotter, faster, more lean angle position.
Because
And
the faster you
so,
go in the corner, the more compressed the time scale gets between the time that you need to lift off the throttle, lean the bike, turn the bike, and then reposition yourself to get on the gas. That whole
yeah.
that whole time.
Well, not only that, but if I enter the corner more on the limit of the tire, now when I get back on the gas, I have less traction available to accept that gas, right? So I'm going to start spinning the tire. So as I progress on my corner entry speed and my momentum, I'm using that traction. And now I have less traction to work with when I get back on the gas. So I'm going to have to change my style and change my strategy to accelerate again. And making that adjustment is a learning curve. So every time I go to the track, I'm seesawing between those two things. So one weekend I'll go out there and I'll finally figure out how to get off the corner at my new entry speed. And then the next weekend I'll realize I probably could have got into that corner faster and I'll do it. And now I can't. And now I'm spinning the tire and feel all out of control on exit. And so you're going to seesaw back and forth. And one of the challenges, of course, in all motorcycle racing is being able to not, you're fighting your fear of, am I going to make this corner? And that's a fine line to walk. And so for the viewers who are starting out as hobbyists like me, I mean, all I can say is be patient and don't rush it, because rushing, especially corner entry, is a good way to crash and get hurt. So just kind of walk your way up to it. And all of this is about, at my level, it's about progress. It's not about a goal. It's about making progress every time you go.
Me too, Craig.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, so, like I said,
strategies that I would like to present to the viewers and, see what you think. We talked about this before, but is a drill that many schools do in various forms called no brakes drill. And what I think this offers to people is it removes the overstimulation and fear factor of having accelerated too hard. So you can go around the track at progressively higher speeds at whatever speed you think you can make the corner at. So let's just say it's 47 miles an hour. So you never go faster than 47 miles an hour. So you can go through the corner at 47 miles an hour and then the next corner at 47. And you realize that's too slow. So now I can go 48. And then you get to the corner at 48, but you have entered the corner at 48. I did it at 47. 48 is not that big of a deal. Whereas if you enter at 70 to get down to 48, that difference, to get from this down to this, that is, it happens so fast that you do it too much or too little. And I think the no brakes drill is liberating in that it removes the overstimulation created by having to brake, where you can find out, can I go 47, 48, 49, or 50?
Well, I mean, yeah. So I think so this is interesting because I'm going to phrase this in an interesting way. So I agree generally with your premise, right? But I think that what Mike's advocating in this case is remove some of the variables so that you have less variables that you have under your control. And so this is true for the conversation we had earlier about the 100s, where you're removing the traction variable and you're working only on the momentum variable. And this leads right into this conversation. So now that you're taking some of those controls out of your hands, you're working only on one variable, which is what's going to be by setting entry speed accurately. And, so from entry to mid corner, I want to find out what my maximum mid corner speed is. So I'm going to walk it and I'm going to look at only one variable. And that is going to give me the most accurate way to establish what the max is. I will criticize this technique in that is fantastic for road racing. It is fantastic on pavement. It is fantastic if you have access to a track for a really long amount of time. Flat track timelines make that a really challenging tool to execute. So, to be fair, like,
yeah,
it's a great strategy. It's just hard to actually accomplish.
Okay, fair enough. And this goes back to we've touched on several things here tonight in our discussion. Yeah. One of them is, how committed do you want to be to this? And you and I have discussed the utility and value of going to the track, meeting the silverbacks of the sport and the new guys and making relationships and finding out, oh yeah, you know what? If you go to this track that races on Saturday nights and you camp out and you're there on Sunday
morning,
yeah, you can ride all damn day.
Yeah.
And those type of experiences, while they're expensive to figure out, in time, if you're interested in the sport, that pays off in spades.
Yeah, I mean, so first thing I want to do, so that we can edit this in later, first thing I want to do is put a shout out to the guys like Bub and all the hobbyists and all the guys who run the tracks out there in their free time to give us a place to ride, who just love the sport and put together these events. The guys up at Flat Out Friday where I'll be riding, they just make it a fun event and they're doing it for passion and it's super cool. And that's part of the family. So all of the guys, and that's not just true for flat track, all over racing, a shout out to the guys who put that together and give us an opportunity to practice. And I'll encourage the silverbacks of the sport to go out and try to become some of those guys too, if they can. So, that's what, one of my future goals, if I do this long enough, is to, help try to organize a little bit once I'm out of the chaos of having children in my career and all that. because I mean, I do think that being a patron of the sport is a little bit more than just participating. And so shout out to all those people who have done that. Without a doubt.
Well, Craig, I appreciate you coming on board and I think you're doing that right now. I think you're giving back to the sport, and that's a little bit of what I try to do here. All joking aside, me attention whoring in my channel. I want people to race flat track, so I really appreciate someone.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, I mean, well, let's get into an interesting story. So, I started racing in 2003. An old road racer I met at a part-time job that I had took me under his wing, found out that I was into motorcycles, found out that I was interested in going racing, and helped me build my bike and took me out racing. So I'll give a shout out to Al Green from Columbus, Ohio, if he's watching, for helping me get going. And so I've tried to hand that down as I've gone on. But one of the reasons that I became an engineer in the end also was because of racing. So I went out and had that experience. I wasn't an engineer at the time. I had thought about doing that as a career, did a little bit of racing, and it kept me interested. And so part of wanting to learn more about how this works is why I got this career, and it's been super fun for me ever since. So motorcycling's given a lot to me, and so it's the least I can do to give it back. And of course, we've made a lot of friends doing this. So, what can I say?
Amazing friends. I would say in the adult portion of my racing career, it has been, kind of the pillar of my, social interaction, the two Craigs, engineers, Mike O'Neill, an engineer, Mike, an engineer. I mean, so many engineers. And then, I should have not mentioned a name because there's just so many cool.
There's a long list of people, and I just, if I meet somebody who's really into bikes and really into racing, and they understand, what can I say? This may be a little bit of a tricky topic these days, but I'm like, there's a certain kind of person who is going to get off their couch and go out in the real world and have a real adventure and put themselves in real harm's way to do it for real. And when I meet one of those persons, we have a deep philosophical link immediately, because we're both that kind of person who experiences things in a certain way. You know what I'm saying? And so a lot of my good friends and I are related in that way, and that we meet each other through motorcycle racing, because that's a conglomeration of people who get off the couch, get out there and really do it. And it's hard and it's tiring and it's expensive and it's scary and it's dangerous, but it's real. And when you're done, it's cool. You know?
Yeah, that's that's amazing, Craig, and thanks for saying that. And I think that's probably about the best note we could leave off on.
Yeah, sweet.
Thanks so much
Yeah,
for your time.
Yeah, dude. Well, it was fun. I mean, you know, I got to move my bike in the living room, so this was a victory for me.
Yeah, that won't happen again.
No, it won't.
All right, man. I can't wait to see you down in the Carolinas so I can put you through my race clinic and
yeah, it's going to be a challenge. We got the new garage hopefully coming in here soon. Maybe someday some fancy flat track parts will come out of there. And you know, it's going to be a busy year, but we'll see what we can do to get down there, and maybe you'll turn some laps on the old two-stroke.
Yeah, you know,
don't break any collarbones.
You know, I'll drive my box van up and plug in, and I may never leave.
Oh, Aaron will love it if you're camped out in our driveway for a couple of weeks.
Well, she'll love it. All right, man. Later.
You know, I would love to see you up here in Wisconsin, or come up to Wisconsin. Those guys love to see you out there, so it'd be awesome. Man. All right, talk to you later.
Hang on a second. You've made it to the end of a Flat Track Factory video. Do the channel a favor and click the like button and the subscribe button so you'll be notified when our next video comes out. Some people have asked how to support the channel financially, and there's a link to do that down in the description. Thanks for watching.